Ladies, and welcome to the Beauty Shaman. So today I am talking to astrologer and intuitive consultant Natha Campanella. It is our monthly discussion of what is going on in the world, and especially now it's 2019. So what is going on in 2019? So Natha, what the heck is going on in 2019?
Hi, everyone. So, 29 every year I think has its themes and has things that are going to be up and asking to be seen and be worked on. But what I thought would be interesting to talk about today is the planet Mercury. And, I'll explain a little bit about what Mercury is. It's the planet of communication. And we all have Mercury in our chart somewhere. And the place and sign that our Mercury lands in talks a lot about how we communicate, our style of communication, our the way that we express our opinions, the way that we think, and really the way that we explore our lives mentally. And so, of course, Mercury is a really personal planet for all of us. We all communicate every single day. And this year, Mercury is going to be going retrograde 3 times. And Mercury usually goes retrograde 3 times in a year. But what is unique about this year is that Mercury is going to be going retrograde in all of the water signs. And I think that that's really special because water signs in astrology are the emotions, and water signs speak to how we react to the world emotionally. So we're looking at communication and emotion. And so I think that that will be a big theme. And I wanted to explain a little bit about what Mercury retrograde actually means.
Before you start,
and I know that everybody.
Before I have to say, I'm a water sign.
Okay.
So I'm Pisces, right? So I'm like, and I've got 7 placements in Pisces, so major water sign. And so what you're talking about is so relevant for those of us who, have that. I just want to junk that in there because that's like a huge thing for me. But yeah, go on and explain the retrograde, because we hear this a lot, like Mercury's in retrograde, but what does that mean?
Yeah. And by the way, Suzanne, your natal Mercury is in the sign of Pisces. Oh. So you not only have a lot of water in your chart, you also have Mercury. So here's what Mercury retrograde means. The planets are always moving in forward motion in the sky, but occasionally they turn backward. It appears backward from Earth. They aren't literally moving backward, but they do appear to move backward. And that's what we call a retrograde period. Now, retrograde in astrology really means that we have the opportunity to go back over old ground. So a Mercury retrograde, oftentimes you'll hear people freaking out and feeling stressed out because it's Mercury retrograde. And there are a lot of, kind of old wives' tales about what Mercury retrograde means. But what it means for us really is that we get the opportunity to go back and look at the way that we have expressed ourselves in the past. And certainly look at the way that people have expressed themselves with us. And we just look at our communication style as a whole. And we have to determine, what is no longer working? What do we really want to shift and change and do over? Because retrogrades oftentimes give us an opportunity to repeat, to do things over, and to take the wisdom of what we've already learned from what we've already done and use it to figure out what needs to change and then make those changes.
So it's a big time of reflection, it sounds like, when the Mercury goes into retrograde. And so we've got 3 times this year when Mercury is going to go into retrograde, when we can really reflect on what we are working on maybe, or what we need to change, or how we want to communicate something better. That's going to be the pivotal times during the year for that.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And really, the flavor of the retrograde depends a lot on the sign that Mercury is going retrograde in. And so, like I said, it'll be all water this year. And when Mercury is in a water sign, we, whether we have, it doesn't matter where our natal Mercury is, we're always affected by it. So, for example, you with your natal Mercury in Pisces, we can say that for you, when you communicate, you have a lot of emotion layered in with what you have to say and with the way that you see the world. Would you say that's true?
Oh God, yes. I'm all like, it's not even just emotion. It's like, well, it is emotion, but it's heart. Like everything. I feel everything. I express everything. It's very like, yeah, I'm very anchored that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, for example, I have my natal Mercury in the sign of Gemini, and that is air. Very different.
Yeah.
Air signs tend to be really, really mental, and there's a lot of jumping around from idea to idea, and um, a lot of like wanting to avoid boredom by being constantly distracted. And so, we all bring our own unique flavor of Mercury into our life and our experience. But when Mercury goes into retrograde, then everything begins to take on the flavor of the sign that it's in. So, for example, in March, we go retrograde in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is very creative. It's very transcendent energy. It can be a little bit escapist. It's certainly compassionate, very, very hooked into feeling what something feels like. I can feel what you're saying beneath your words. I have emotions beneath my words that I'm trying to communicate, even if my words are not, um, sometimes we speak and we aren't exactly saying what we're feeling because we're trying to be nice or we're trying to relate, all of these things. And so in March, we'll get the opportunity to really look at what's beneath our words. Have we been communicating from our heart? Are we, I used the word escapist earlier. Are we trying to escape something? And so we'll get the opportunity to really dive in.
Awesome. Okay. What's the other retro? What's the other two? So March is Pisces.
So March is going to be Pisces. July is going to be, it's going to start in Leo, which is a fire sign. So we'll get some, fire Mercuries, by the way, those are the people that tend to be really outspoken. The people that say immediately, it's like there's no pause between mind and words.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I get a little bit jealous of the Mercury fire signs. I do, because sometimes it would be really nice to just be able to like, I'm just saying it. So we start off in a fire, but then we end in Cancer. And so Cancer water is, all the water signs are very emotional, but Cancer is very motherly. Cancer is about nurturing and really feeling impacted by those around us, and feeling very much like we want to take care of people in the way that we communicate. Like we want to offer them what we have. Like we're a mother and we're saying, here, let me give this to you. But with Cancer, if we feel like that is not being reciprocated, then we can get very moody and needy and controlling. And so we might find that in July, when Mercury is in retrograde, that we get to look at some of those pieces of how we're communicating.
Yeah. Wow.
Are we trying to mother too much? Are we allowing ourselves to receive? And so these will be the themes that will be in July.
Awesome. Oh, those are always good themes. I think, especially for moms. So you and I are both moms, and I have a tendency to overgive to my kids. I think most of us do. It's a big part of parenting. Is just, are you okay? So this will be a good time to really examine that in July.
Yeah. And what I see when I'm working with clients is that even if you don't have children, we are, especially as women, really, we're mothering everywhere. Whether we're mothering our animals or we're mothering our coworkers or our best friends, even our house plants, we have this like very natural desire to give what we have.
Yeah.
And to try to caretake.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to look at some of our caretaking tendencies as they relate to our communication. And of course, receiving is always a huge thing with Cancer. And that's something that a lot of women are also not very good at, is we're great at giving. But when it comes to receiving, it's like, oh, I have all these blocks.
Right.
And so we'll get the chance to look at some of those in July. And then, of course, in October, it's the third retrograde. It's in Scorpio.
Oh.
So Scorpio is the emotional water sign that really prompts us to look down deep at our shadowy sides. And so Scorpio wants us to seek the truth. And so we'll find that in October that we'll have to really analyze the way that we speak our truth. And so many of us, because I mentioned it a little bit, but we have this tendency to want to make sure that we're pleasing with what we say, and that we aren't going to get rejected, and we aren't going to come up against anger. So we say things even if that's not really what we mean. And in saying those things, sometimes it brings up, we end up, if we're willing to admit it, we can be manipulative, or we can be emotionally repressed. We can, be passive aggressive, and we all have these tendencies, right? And in October, we're going to get the opportunity, if we're willing to take it, to really look at how those things show up in the way that we're communicating. And we'll get to see whether we want to shift some of those.
Sounds like it'd be interesting to talk to you through each one of those retrogrades. And I think throughout the
Yes.
year, the plan is that you and I talk every month, and we talk about kind of what's going on. And
Yeah.
so these will be very interesting months, and then to delve into those subjects, because each one of those, you did a great job of bringing up how that affects women, because the audience, here is women. All of you are women out there. Well, maybe a few dudes, but anyway. But these are great things, and I love these type of things when they show up, because they really are times to learn and examine myself, and think through things and make great decisions. And I love that kind of energy, and I think that's going to be those 3 months will be really key times for that.
Yeah, I think it would be really relevant to go, as we're talking each month, certainly we'll be talking about all of the little astrological things that are happening. And we'll definitely talk about Mercury retrograde, but really go in depth, talk about really a little bit more on Pisces, for example, in March. What does it mean when Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, and how does that really deeply relate to all of us, which it does. As above, so below, as they say in astrology.
I love that. Well, that's a great Hermetic saying, and it's one of my favorites, because it helps me know, we're not isolated here. Like, things don't happen in a vacuum. We're all one, and I love that idea. So
Yeah, and I think it's great to know, astrologically, that everybody else is kind of dealing with similar themes. And we often go through life feeling like, oh, I'm the only one that's having a hard time communicating my emotions. But then when we zoom out and we see, oh my God, every single person on some level is going through some version of this. And that can be very supportive to know as well.
Oh, absolutely. And so I want to encourage ladies in the audience here, as we close out, I want to encourage you to write down below just maybe questions you have, or thoughts, or things you'd like to share. I'd love to talk to with all of you, just about maybe what you're experiencing, or questions you might have for Natha. I think she's a great resource, and we can definitely bring those up on this particular part of the show. So anyway, thanks for watching The Beauty Shaman. Thank you so much, Natha, for tuning in. And they're not tuning in, but the chiming in, I guess, on this 2019.
Definitely. My pleasure. I can't wait to keep continuing the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And ladies, if you want more of Natha, go to Natha Perkins or Natha Campanella, right? But either website is good. So let's say Natha Campanella. I'll put it down below so you can see it, for more information on what she does and how to have an appointment with her. Thank you very much for watching The Beauty Shop.